Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to Serially Cinema, Episode 3. This week we're talking about David Lynch's 1986 classic, Blue Velvet. Enjoy. Okay, starting off at the top here, Alex Princeton, how's it going, man?
Uh, hey Sam, it's going all
What's
right.
up?
It's a sunny day in Denver, Colorado.
Oh, good. I'm glad you have your podcasting voice on. You sound like an NPR host.
So good to be here with you.
Yeah, thanks.
Alex's dream job.
How's work today?
Uh, you don't want to talk about work, do you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I want to hear all about it.
Uh,
Give me the short version.
yeah, of course. Two-sentence version. We're bringing 100 people to Denver next week, and I am skeptical about how it will go.
Nice.
Awesome.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. Next up on the docket, Gideon, what's up, man? How's your day going so far?
Good, man. Work was good. It was chill. Nothing major happened. Excited to talk about the movie today.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it last night, and I've never seen any of his movies before, so till now.
Yeah, well, this is, I think, like the perfect jumping off point for David Lynch, even though it's not his first movie. So I'm glad to hop into that a little bit later in the show too. Neill, how's it going, man?
As MC Ride says, it goes.
And did you have to go into the office today?
Yeah, we're just finishing up busy time of year at work. So one more day of that, and then it's back to normal for a bit.
Nice. And Jake has decided to join us for another episode, taking a break from his paleontological duties. It's probably not a word, right? And how's it going, man?
It's going pretty good. Sleep schedule's been better than usual, so I've been feeling pretty good, eating all right. So, doing pretty well. I actually was able to go out to eat for breakfast this morning. So,
Nice. Where'd you go?
Oh, it's this place nearby called called Butters or something. But it was pretty
I love
good.
that place.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just got myself a skillet.
Nice. Sounds good.
Yeah. You know what I like from a breakfast place if I've got extra time is Eggs Benedict.
Yes.
Oh man, I thought about getting that. It's a
Mhm.
classic.
Yeah, Eggs Benedict is good. Named after a guy who ordered that specific dish at a restaurant in New York City as a cure for a hangover.
Huh.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
But
You ever had a prairie oyster? Sam,
No,
I bet
I
you're the
don't-
kind of guy who would.
I don't know what that is, so no.
A prairie oyster, it was invented as a hangover cure, and it's like a raw egg with Jägermeister and hot sauce.
Oh my god, that's disgusting.
And you just drink it.
Ugh. Okay, moving on. Paul, how's your day going, man?
I'm Paul.
Uh-huh.
I thought I should make that reference for this episode, but no, it goes well. Contrary to Alex's work life, my work is sending me to Houston next month, which I'm not really looking forward to. I'm also skeptical of how it will go,
Mhm.
but we're staying busy, so
Yeah.
good
Good.
times.
Good. I had a pretty good day. I had to leave work a little bit early this afternoon to pick up a check from a building in some weird part of Minneapolis. I had band practice last night, and Wednesday is my day to go into the office, so I've been running all over hell like the last 24 hours, but glad to finally be here.
Are you embezzling money, or is this like what kind of check is this?
This is we got our deposit back from our old apartment.
Oh, that's
Nice.
something
And I
to
just
celebrate then.
instead of them mailing it to us, I just picked it up from the corporate office, which was in Minneapolis. So, so that was a disappointingly low amount of money, but that's okay. Small price to pay to move to the city, right? So I think we're gonna hop right into it. So last week we talked about Jurassic Park, and then sometime during the discussion, it came to be revealed that I had not seen The Lost World, and so my assignment for the week was to go home, watch The Lost World, and report back to you gentlemen. And I'm happy to report that while The Lost World wasn't like a horrible movie by any means, it was not nearly as good as the original Jurassic Park.
Well, of course, like I don't think anybody claims that it is. But I still stand by the claim that I made in the last episode that of the three movies, it's the goofiest one. It is probably the funniest of the Jurassic Park movies.
Mm-hmm. I will say I love the cast. Jeff Goldblum being the star is great. I love Julianne Moore. Toby from The West Wing is in it, and Peter Stormare is in it. So there was like 4 or 5 actors in it that I thought were just all time favorites. And I did like the guy. I think you mentioned the actor's name last week, but he plays the hunter who's going after the T
Roland.
Rex.
Pete
Yeah,
Postlethwaite.
Roland is
Right.
awesome. Yeah, that guy was awesome. And I did like the tall grass scene.
I thought, Sam, you would love the T-Rex destroying LA, running rampant.
Yeah, it was okay. It felt a little like tacked on to the end. I guess my biggest problem with the movie, I watched it with Grace, and we both agreed that like while it was enjoyable, it just seemed like very everybody was making very bad decisions just to progress the plot to the next set piece. Like as soon as I saw Vince Vaughn running holding the baby T-Rex, I was like, oh Christ, here we go. Like this, nothing good is gonna come of them, taking this baby T-Rex, even if it's to like set the leg or something. Or when Julianne Moore gets blood on her jacket, I was like, okay, this is like Chekhov's bloody jacket. Like this is gonna come back at some point, and we're gonna, or like, and I will say the stupidest callback in the entire movie is the Jeff Goldblum's daughter doing the gymnastics routine on the pole and then kicking the Velociraptor out the window. I was like, okay.
So
That's like universally regarded between like Jurassic Park fans as one of the dumbest sequences in the entire series.
Now, at the same time, we have to acknowledge that until we get to Jurassic World, she is the only character to have successfully killed a velociraptor.
Or any dinosaur at all. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I don't. Another scene that I was kind of confused by was like Peter Stormare. I don't know if he's big, but he looks like a pretty big dude. Like probably like 6'3", 6'4", and like 210 or something like that. If I was getting hopped on by a bunch of those little dinosaurs, and I would probably just like stop, drop, and roll, right? Like, wouldn't that be more effective than trying to brush them off with your hand or anything?
So
In theory.
the compies are actually like a bigger threat in the books. I don't know how accurate this is to real life, but in the books they're described as having like a bite like a Komodo dragon, where like it's super like bacterial and it like immediately causes an infection and like
Yeah,
like,
it's
you're
like
getting paralyzed from it.
it's like a venom or a poison that like puts you to sleep, kind of.
Yeah,
They
damage
have-
over time.
Yeah, and they don't really. I don't know if it's ever like discussed or not in the movies. I don't think it is, but in the books they emphasize that a lot about how dangerous they are in that regard.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. It was pretty good. It was just like I thought like the weakest part of it was the script, and I even felt like the whole reason for them going there. Like I know that it's his girlfriend or whatever, and she's on the island for some reason, but like the whole setup of like getting them back to the island was just like to me so ridiculous. Like if I was Jeff Goldblum and I had been pretty much taken out and by a T-Rex in the first movie, I would never have set foot. It was like, I know it's Julianne Moore and everything, but I probably would have been like, I can find another future ex Mrs. Goldblum. So, right, and I would have probably just bounced if I was him. I don't know if you guys have any more thoughts on The Lost World.
I think the people just wanted more Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, well, he was hot. Independence Day came out right around here too, and yeah.
One other thing I wanted to point out, just as like I guess this is more of an opinion, but at least within like the original trilogy, I forget the character's name. He's part of Jeff Goldblum's team. He's like the technician and driver, and he's the guy who's in the Jeep as he's trying to like pull the camper back up over the cliff. And he has like, oh god.
Yeah, it's but Eddie Carr is the character's name. I can't remember the actor.
It's
a comedian.
Richard Schiff, because he's Toby in The West Wing.
Yeah.
He's got like probably like the second gnarliest death in the original franchise. Like
yeah,
like it's Muldoon in the first one, like where you get like 30 seconds of him just screaming as he's like slowly eviscerated by a velociraptor. And then poor Eddie, doing his absolute best to save the main cast, ripped in half by 2 tyrannosaurs. Like,
yeah.
R.I.P. to a legend.
Yeah, that guy went out like an absolute baller. Like I feel like in Jurassic Park movies, usually like the bigger of an asshole you are, the worse of a death you end up getting.
Yeah, that's true.
And I felt like it was kind of like out of pocket, like how bad Toby's death was. For like Neill said, just trying to help out the main more attractive cast members.
But I mean, just usually when you've got like whatever the biggest dinosaur in the movie is, so T-Rex for most of it, Spinosaur for the third one, Indominus Rex in the fourth. Usually, like it's like chomp and like maybe some legs are sticking out or the head gets shaken around like with the lawyer in the first movie. But big dinosaur is chomp and it's over. Although I want to point out, do you guys remember the sequence in Jurassic World where like who's the Bryce Dallas Howard's like her like assistant who's supposed to watch her nephews, and she gets like taken by a pterosaur and like dumped in the lake and then swallowed whole by the mosasaur. Like that's pretty brutal, but like I swear, like that's some vor fetishist like, getting his hand on the script, because like if you actually like stop the scene, like she's like you can see her partially underneath the pterosaur, so the pterosaur gets like bitten by teeth. She's just like on the mosasaur's tongue, so she just gets swallowed.
Yeah. Yeah, some pretty brutal deaths in this series. I regret to inform you guys, please don't make me watch another Jurassic Park movie. I have not seen Jurassic World.
Okay, Sam, you have to watch Jurassic World.
Son of a bitch.
Have you've seen the third one, right? It was the first
I've seen the third one,
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen any of the new ones, and I hadn't seen Lost World. Which kind of goes into our second topic. We were going to talk about what were the movies that you watched when you were sick as a kid, like maybe you had them on VHS or something. And the reason I mentioned that is that I distinctly remember the cover art for Jurassic Park 3, and we would watch Jurassic Park 3 quite a bit. We had a small TV with a VHS player built into it that we'd take on like car trips. Little Stray Jack family lore. My mom will not get on an airplane, so every family vacation we took growing up had to be driving somewhere, whether that was to Denver or Minneapolis or Florida, so we had a lot of long car trips, and the VHS TV little combo for the backseat was pretty invaluable. But yeah, we'd worn out quite a few VHSs like that. So yeah, we'll go around the horn and we'll talk about the movies that you watched a lot growing up on VHS, like when you were sick or you wore out the tape or something like that. I guess I'll start off and I'll say the one I remember watching the most is The Empire Strikes Back. We didn't have Star Wars on VHS. We didn't have Return of the Jedi on VHS. So I have no idea where we got this single lone copy of Empire Strikes Back, but we had it, and it was the special edition with all the CGI edits, and you can see more of the what's the snow creature that comes and gets Luke on Hoth?
Wampa.
The Wampa, yeah. Yeah, sorry, don't everybody scream Wampa and reveal yourself to be Star Wars nerds at once. And it had all this added special effects and things like that. So I mean, I've seen Empire Strikes Back probably 10 times more than I've seen any other Star Wars movie. Which, hey, if you've got to pick one, that's probably the one, right? But I'll start at the top of the list again. So Alex Princeton, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought about this just a little bit before we began, and I'll go with Homeward Bound. Anyone remember Homeward Bound?
I remember Homeward Bound, yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
I know what it is, but I've never seen it.
I've also never seen it, but it's notable around these parts because that's Grace's dad's favorite movie, and he cries every time.
Unbelievable. Okay, so let me just give you a quick rundown. The story of Homeward Bound is that these irresponsible pet owners desert their pets on some kind of vacation or something. I actually don't remember exactly. And it's the story of, the dog's magnificent ability to find its way home no matter how far away it is. Kind of I don't know if that's actually true, or there's like maybe one confirmed report of a dog doing it ever. But my experience with this film is that I know I loved it as a kid, and within the last 5 years, I've gone back to watch it and just been extremely disappointed with how terrible the practical effects are. I mean, the voiceovers are just. My recollection is that that the animals essentially talked, and that it aligned with the mouths. But really, what they did is they just filmed these like trained animals walking around in several fields, and then just did all the voiceover in post, and it doesn't align at all.
Yeah,
So
I thought it was just
I
like
would,
their thoughts, sort of. That's what I would.
yeah, I was pretty disappointed.
That was a
But
real like late '90s thing.
Yeah,
Remember
exactly.
when the movie Cats and Dogs came out, and it was all that too,
Oh,
where
yeah.
they just film the pets or the animals and then voiceover and just like shitty voice acting.
Was,
I'll
Dude,
throw
I
in.
had one like that called.
was Homeward Bound the one with the where the dog gets the porcupine quills on his cheek?
Yes,
That's
I do believe it is.
I always felt so bad for that dog.
I had a similar movie on VHS called Napoleon about a golden retriever that gets lost in Australia.
What the fuck?
He like literally gets lost in like the outback and has to get saved by like a pack of kangaroos or some shit. Like it's nuts.
Kangaroo
Doesn't
Jack
talk.
coming in.
Yeah, I mean he talks. It's like Homeward Bound where his obviously there's like no dog lip syncing or anything like that. It's just you're like hearing the dog's thoughts or whatever. So I don't really remember it, but I remember the cover art. Again, I think we had that on VHS. So
Let me throw in an honorable mention for An American Tail, Fievel Goes West.
Oh, that was probably one of my favorites, actually. That was probably one that I watched a lot. And I had no idea that it had anything to do with, like, I guess, like, what, the diaspora or whatever. And, like, I had no idea it was some kind of parallel for, like, early immigrants coming to America. I just loved the talking animals.
I think it really holds up on a rewatch, and exactly because of those kinds of deeper themes. So I one good, one bad. That's me, Sam.
Okay, that is a good one. I've seen American Tail Vival Goes West, but that's not the original one, right? There's one where it's just like it's him and his immigrant rat family coming to New York City or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. I think they both hold up, and I might have actually been thinking of the first one.
Okay.
But I think Five Goes
That's
West
good.
is the one that's more kind of popular, but I think they're both good movies. I think they're both pretty well received.
They're animated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know
okay.
Spielberg had something to do with them too, I think. If I remember right.
That sounds
sounds
right.
Spielberg. All right, Gideon. Let's hear it.
A couple. I have very vivid memories of being really sick for like a week at a time with these two different movies. Or like I watched the original trilogy. We had that for Star Wars, just all on VHS. And I remember a week just being sick as a dog watching those. But the one that really sticks out for me, it was just I guess the collection of shorts from Wallace and Gromit and the Curse of the Were-Rabbit when that came out. That might have been DVD for Curse of the Were-Rabbit, but yeah, we watched those endlessly, and I adore even to this day Wallace and Gromit, especially those original shorts, like when they go to the moon and they go there just because the moon's made out of cheese and they want cheese and crackers.
Dude,
Gromit. We forgot the crackers, Gromit.
And that robot is the scariest shit ever. Oh my god. When they're trying to escape. I don't know if
Dude,
you guys have seen it, but
I haven't seen Wallace and Gromit, but we had Chicken Run on VHS, and I
Ooh, yes.
love Chicken Run.
Dude. The one I'm referencing where they go to the moon, there's like this robot and he has a dream of like skiing or something like that. And he basically just goes crazy and they're trying to escape the moon and get back home with the cheese and everything. And the robot is like going berserk and like ripping the rocket ship apart while they're like trying to launch. And it was like super scary. But
This
it was
gives
awesome.
me that gives me an idea for like a topic in a future episode, like bits from kids' movies that scarred you because
Oh,
you weren't
yeah,
ready for them
dude.
yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I was just going to bring up my memory of Wallace and Gromit as like utter terror, and the robot scenes for sure were scary, but there was just something about the claymation that was so
Yes.
alien and strange that
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't look away, but I hated it.
I
Yeah.
didn't like claymation as a kid either.
Many of the like scariest episodes of Courage the Cowardly Dog are exactly scary because they employ claymation on top of like traditional 2D animation, and that jump in art style is like really jarring and freaky.
It is pretty unsettling, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Neill, what do you got, man?
So I've got a trio. We're in sort of like the progression into maturity. So same studio that made American Tail. I had The Land Before Time 5, The Mysterious Island.
Oh, hell yeah.
I did not have any of the other ones. I just had 5.
Nice.
Then the middle ground was Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
Oh, that was good. That was a really good.
Hell
Which
Because
has,
it's
like-
terror time again.
that song has no business going as hard as it does. In
Dude, that song rips.
Yeah, so good. But then finally, when I started to like get away from childish things, we had a copy of Leon the Professional, the movie that sparked like a number of creepy like stalking cases against Natalie Portman by weird pedophiles. And I think the original script is actually like gross in a lot of ways, and then they had to trim it down to make it acceptable on the main screen.
Dude, I don't remember any of the Land Before Time movies, but I think I rented one of them over and over again from Blockbuster, and it was the one where they're like the main crew of Dino Kids is like going somewhere, and there's these two creepy dinosaurs following them the whole way.
And then there's like a quicksand scene where they have to like save the creepy dinosaurs.
I don't know if it's quicksand or whatever. I just remember there was like a tall dinosaur and a fat dinosaur, and they were like the bad guys, and they were kind of following the Littlefoot and his P.E.K.K.A. in his dino squad the whole time. But that's all I really remember. And I think I also remember one where they were like aliens. Does this sound familiar to anybody? I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. But
The first one I remember, but the second one I have no memory of aliens in that franchise.
oh, man.
But I think I stopped after 5 anyway.
I have pretty vivid memories of 1, 2, and 3. I mean, the first Land Before Time is, an animated masterpiece, just lovely film. I always cry when Littlefoot's mother dies.
Yeah,
Spoilers.
brutal.
Spoilers for Land Before Time.
Man, you guys are posting some absolutely cursed CGI images in the chat here. I'm gonna have to like clear this cache out later because I don't open this at like 2 a.m. and like then I can't sleep.
I mean, you mentioned Courage the Cowardly Dog. Probably worth its own episode at some
Dude,
time.
I love Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Definitely. I would love to talk about that.
I like that. I don't remember what his name is, but he's like a fox and he has like really cool background music and he like
Cats.
snaps all the time. Cats, that guy.
I think he's a cat.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
Jake, what's your pick, man?
Oh man, well, because I actually thought about this a little bit, and I wasn't really sure what I would say, but then you guys mentioned a bunch that I had definitely seen a lot of too. I remember watching The Land Before Time. Like I said, like Five Goes West is another one. I liked The Rescuers as well.
Hell yeah.
The Don Bluth.
Is it the Down Under?
Down Under was definitely I remember seeing him.
That was
Down
a
Under was the
repeat for
coolest
me.
one because it had that giant eagle and the dude with the scary like
Oh,
truck
man.
thing, the poacher.
Yeah.
And they had the
And the lizard.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Dude, what's up with that giant bird in The Rescuers Down Under? I remember being like, like I'm 7 or 8 years old watching that movie and being like, there isn't any bird that is that big, surely.
Yes, it must be like, well, because like the Thunderbird is like an American thing, so I don't know because it takes place in Australia what that is.
Mhm.
But it is I can't remember because it's been so long since I've seen it. But
Mhm.
I think it's just like it's like endangered. It's one of a kind, and I think it's like a it's the last remaining like female.
It's
I
the
think it's
mother,
laid eggs.
right?
Yeah, and the poacher like
Hmm.
had killed the male, and so the boy is trying to save the female and her nest, so that the species
I'm,
can keep going.
I'm looking it up. I don't know
That
if
sounds right.
I don't know if this is totally accurate to the movie, but because it could have been like a made up bird. But the wedge-tailed eagle is the largest bird of prey found in Australia, with a wingspan of
Mm-mm.
over 2
is that
meters.
what it's supposed to
Holy
be?
shit.
I just looked up biggest flying bird in Australia
Fits
because otherwise you're gonna get like a fucking
the bill.
Sasquatch or something.
I
It just reminds me, like speaking of Scooby Doo Zombie Island, it reminds me that apparently there is a sequel to Scooby Doo on Zombie Island called Return to Zombie Island, where they retcon all the supernatural shit from the original movie. And now I'm thinking we should do that as a one of these weeks. We should all watch Return to Zombie Island and compare it to the original masterpiece.
Sam, why do you want to hurt me?
Yeah, that would be a good episode.
yeah, I would watch
Um,
both.
so Jake, remind me again what your picks were.
I had quite a few, and probably some I can't remember off the top of my head, but I said, well, Land Before Time was one of them. The Rescuers Down Under, Five Goes West. I liked
Mm-hmm.
Balto, that was another one. A lot of animated stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, Disney films as well. But yeah, probably.
I got a few. Keep in mind, Jacob and I are brothers, and Jacob's the older brother, so most of mine are just the ones that Jacob didn't want.
That's awesome.
All right, so
But
what are they going to be, Paul?
I thought of some, and they're probably just more that Jacob forgot.
Probably.
No, okay, all right. Brave Little Toaster.
Yes. Brave Little Toast Goes to
Nice.
Mars, I think, was one of my favorites.
Yeah. The Borrowers.
Yep, I remember that one.
John Goodman. And then another one that I had, it doesn't really count, but just because Sam said movies we watched when we were sick kids, I saw this movie on TV, didn't have it, so it doesn't really count, but I saw it when I was sick, and it's forever associated with like fever dreams for me now, because I don't know how much of the movie was real and how I was in and out of sleep. I had a really bad fever when I was a kid. I watched it on the couch. Galaxy Quest.
Bro.
Oh,
hell
dude,
yeah.
Galaxy Quest is
I've
awesome.
been wanting to
That movie's
rewatch
the
that for
shit.
so long.
I will never. I don't think I'll ever be able to really experience that movie the way other people do. When I think about it, like the taste of like tea comes into my mouth, and I have a little bit of a headache because of like how sick I was as a kid when I watched it. But it was so bizarre for me to like, I don't know, watch it on the couch while suffering from a fever.
When Grace and I first started dating, it was like a couple months in, and I had the flu really bad, and that was the weekend I decided to watch Hereditary.
Jesus.
So that was a hell of an experience, and then I think I watched The Shining that weekend too. So it was
Nice.
just it was pretty bonkers. Yeah, it's funny how movies can hit you sometimes when you're like sick or how watching a movie when you're well reminds you of like a different time in your life, or like when you were a kid or you were sick or something, or if you were young enough when you originally watched it that you don't remember a lot of it, but then you watch it as an adult, you remember bits and pieces. Like you have those like little tiny flashback moments. That's definitely like a pretty powerful thing.
That's how it felt rewatching Jurassic Park last week for me.
Mhm.
Because I really hadn't seen it since I was a kid. And there's so many just like vivid scenes just like seared into my brain. So the dinosaurs are just so crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with movies like that, sometimes it's like you remember all the action because when you're a kid, that's what you care about, but you don't remember any of the dialogue, of course.
Right.
And it's like Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka is like 90 minutes long, and only the last 35 minutes are in the chocolate factory. Like um, most of it is like the boring stuff that like kids don't want to sit through. And but of course, like in our memory, in our mind's eye, we only remember the chocolate factory from the movie. So
Yeah.
So what do you guys say we move on and we start talking about kind of the main course today, which is you were all assigned to watch Blue Velvet. So I'm curious to see. I haven't talked to any of you guys since you watched it. I'm super curious to hear your thoughts on it. I absolutely love this movie. I think it's like easily the best of the David Lynch movies that I've seen. And I think it so powerfully um, states like everything that he's about as an artist. It's like kind of funny and very like straight arrow, very Eagle Scout, very like middle America, and then it just has all that really crazy weird shit going on right under the surface. And if you've ever watched an interview with him, that is exactly him to the T. It's like a really strong expression of the director, and I think I know it's such a crazy movie, but for me it's so powerful because it is so relatable.
That's a strange
so I
thing
would just
to
be
say.
Yeah.
well, not that I'm like huffing amyl nitrates like Dennis Hopper's character or anything like that, but I mean, like not to go too much into it.
Given your history,
Yeah, exactly. The reason I guess I relate to it is because I've always felt like some responsibility to be like normal Midwest guy, like solid, straight as an arrow, and just like do the right thing and just kind of do what's expected. But there's this other part of me where you want to go off and you want to do the crazy art thing, and you want to like, you want to get with the manic pixie dream girl from the guitar shop, and you want to do all this crazy, stupid bullshit that you shouldn't be doing. And to me, that's totally Kyle MacLachlan's character in this movie, right? Like that scene where Isabella Rossellini is like naked in the living room, and then Laura Dern is also there, and then Laura Dern suddenly realizes that like Kyle MacLachlan is like a little bit of a psycho.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all very powerful stuff. Like that was the scene that most emotionally affected me. But I'm curious to hear what you guys thought of it watching it for the first time.
So, I just a few weeks ago got finished watching The Sopranos for the first time. So
Nice.
naturally, when I'm watching a movie now, like first thing that's going through my head is like, okay, what's the symbolism here? What does it mean, right? So I'm like kind of like a college freshman who just got through with his literature 101 class and thinks he's smart ass and knows everything. But so that was what I watched a lot for in this movie. And right off the bat, like you kind of mentioned, immediately the movie kind of puts forward these themes of like sunny sort of presentation of things, but underneath there's this dark, sinister thing going on underneath. Because you start out, it's this like perfect, almost like 50s stereotypical looking town, even though it's like 86. And it's interesting because the movie is Blue Velvet, but the first thing you see is like these red roses and this big red fire truck going by, and the very vibrant colors. It's a very happy, like suburban neighborhood, and then there's like nice music going on, and then you're just the guy has his like heart attack or whatever it was, and right off the bat, like you're under the ground and like there's these bugs crawling around, and there's this like feverish kind of pitched like droning noise. So immediately you kind of get the grasp of like, okay, this is what the movie is all about. And I don't know, I liked how that all kind of unraveled as the movie went along, from like different things that like the conversation. One thing that I thought was kind of cool was they start to kind of get information on what was her name? Dorothy was it Dorothy?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They start getting information on her, and like for the first time. So I think this is before he has the weird experience with her. But Laura Dern and him, they meet up and to like talk about what they saw, and they pull up like right in front of like a church, right, with all the organ playing and the big light in the windows, and so you kind of have like, you're like, okay, so this is like a representation of like repentance or the emergence of purity or something, and they're gonna like explain everything that they saw, and she explains the dream about the robins, and at the end of the movie there's that very obvious symbolism of what that scene meant at the end. I won't spoil it. But yeah, I
No, spoil it, man. We've all seen it.
I don't
Yeah.
know who's watching this right now or listening to this, but
Nobody. That's the answers.
yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, spoiler warning for sure, but yeah, go for
Yeah,
it.
but no, like the Robins and how that all plays out in the end. But yeah, I liked how it all kind of went through and wrapped itself up very nicely, and But no, it was very good exploratory film, and I thought it was.
Was there a standout scene that you really enjoyed, or was that your mention of the church scene?
Well,
kind of that?
When I was watching it, I was hoping I was really hoping that my roommate was not hearing the weird sex scenes going on. I didn't want him to think I was some kind of
Mhm.
weirdo watching a porno on
Yeah.
TV.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, probably like the church scene was interesting. And the first time, my God, okay, so like Laura Dern, like she's pretty. Like I'm
Mhm.
mostly familiar with her later works with like Jurassic Park and obviously, um, but she's like beautiful in this movie. Like you had
Yeah.
no idea. But that is too actually. That's another small one too. Was when I kind of saw like Laura Dern and like the two women in the movie. They were both kind of like contrasts of each other. Like Laura Dern is this kind of pure good, hopeful kind of character, and then Dorothy represents like she's not an evil person, but she sort of represents the damaged sort of like darkness of the other side of the totem, I guess. And I thought that was interesting too, because like the first time you see Laura Dern, she says something and just like comes right out of the darkness, and she's just like glowing. And so I don't know. I like the symbolism.
Mhm.
The symbolism in this
Mm.
movie came up very strong, but not like too in your face. But no, I liked it a lot. It was good.
Yeah.
I think that's
Well,
real. There's a very obvious contrast between Laura Dern and Isabella
Rossellini.
Rossellini.
Mhm.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's if you've seen David Lynch's first film, Eraserhead, the same thing happens in that, right? Where he's there's like the girl that he's supposed to be courting who isn't Laura Dern, but basically could be Laura Dern in Blue Velvet. I mean, they're just cut from the absolute same cloth. And that, but he's always tempted by the woman who lives in the apartment across the hall,
Yeah,
who
he's got to make the right
again
choice.
could have been exactly Isabella Rossellini, right? And that's kind of what I meant like earlier when I was talking about like how in some way the Jeffrey character is like very. I know it's like such a crazy movie, but it's very Midwestern relatable in some way.
So on the subject of Jeffrey, I know that Kyle MacLachlan is like one of David Lynch's like go-to actors. Like he was in his version of Dune. He's in Twin Peaks. Like
Yep.
they have a long-standing professional relationship.
who is he in Twin Peaks?
He's like the
Dale Cooper.
So he's basically like David Lynch's Johnny Depp. That's what you're saying.
yeah.
He's the self-insert for David Lynch. Absolutely.
Okay, and it's interesting that you say self-insert because like I'm not trying to rag on Kyle MacLachlan here, but like he is so like normal. Like tell me a distinctive feature about Kyle MacLachlan.
No, I noticed that too. Yeah.
I think that's the point. Is that
Yeah, like,
there's nothing to catch your clothes on with him as an actor.
He's kind of
I think
he's
it's
very much a
interesting.
straight man character.
Yeah.
Man,
Well,
I did not recognize him from Twin Peaks. The age is he's so young in this. Okay.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, in Twin Peaks is just a few years after this, right? So Twin Peaks is like 89. Blue Velvet is 86. So they just aged him up really well. And Kyle MacLachlan's a great actor. But yeah, to your point, Jake, absolutely. Kyle MacLachlan in this movie is supposed to be like a mannequin without a head, right? He's blank so that you can insert yourself into so that you can insert yourself into such a crazy situation, right? Kind of like a Luke Skywalker
the audience
or
surrogate.
whatever.
See,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
that's interesting. You guys said that because I would disagree. From things I've seen him in, which I've mostly known him from like Portlandia. That's where I first started seeing this Kyle actor before. But I feel like he's always had like an air of quirkiness to him, almost like he has his own orbit, or just like the way he moves and stuff, his physicality. So I don't know. I don't think he is a normal person to me. He seems
Yeah.
there's something
Well,
special
I think
about
part
him.
of his character kind of represents the theme of the movie, which is that while things might appear pretty well put together on the outside, there can be potential for bad things down below. And I think he kind of, in that sense, because he kind of struggles between doing the right thing or kind of going into some sort of deviancy in his exposure to this like underground world, and ultimately, you know, things work out the way they do. But I think I guess his, in a way, his character sort of is a representation of the themes of the film, kind of personified as well in that regard. So
I've got to agree. He reads like almost an alien to me. Like pretending to be human, and I think he does. Yeah. I don't know. There's something about his performance in this that is, just like very uncanny valley to me in its character.
I felt like that was.
Oh, go
what's
ahead.
up?
Oh, I was just gonna, go ahead, Paul.
All right. I was just gonna say, I think that was like for me, that clicked very immediately in like the first scene when he's showing the ear to the detective. Just the way that the characters are interacting with each other. The way that I described it to my girlfriend, because I told her that I was watching the movie, was that it was like this movie came out in the 80s, and I almost feel like Lynch was telling the actors to like emulate a 50s movie. That like the way that actors would behave in like a 50s movie. And they just talk with this really kind of upbeat, but like it's very clearly an artistic choice, and if it wasn't, I would just say like, oh, it was clearly written by somebody who doesn't understand social interactions.
What's that? Boy, howdy, you found an ear in the middle, you say?
Yeah.
I got it.
Exactly.
There's these scenes where people are sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, even the way they address each other, like he calls him detective like every single time, stuff like that. But yeah, go ahead, Alex.
That scene, and maybe this is part of what you're getting at, Paul, but there are scenes where people are smiling in this movie.
Yes.
Where they're discussing like the detective is just excited that he just got an ear. I don't know.
That was weird.
You
certainly
having me grinning saying, you really shouldn't get into this business, son. It's terrible.
To me, though, the way that people interact with each other in the daytime in this movie, like it's totally an artistic choice, because when the sun goes down and you're in or you're in the middle of like the more intense sexual scenes in the movie, like people drop that, right? Like people don't talk like that. Like Frank Booth doesn't talk like that.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
It's supposed to be a contrast between like these two things. Just like Laura Dern is such a comically over the top contrast from Isabella Rossellini. Yeah.
So, go ahead.
One thing I could say that is like a standout scene for me that I feel like really ties in with the themes, kind of like what Jake was talking about earlier. And I thought it was just like, even like how we were just talking about how he's kind of a weird, quirky character. When he did that like awkward chicken walk thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And even the physicality of that too, it was like so committed, you could just tell. And I thought it was really just like funny and kind of goofy in the moment, but the more I thought about it as the movie progressed and it finished, I was like, that's like the death of his innocence in a way, because he's almost like talking to Laura Dern, and he's like, well, what's the worst that could happen, kind of thing. And oh, nobody will suspect us. And it's like the worst that could happen is like that you don't even realize, like, you're going to witness someone get sexually assaulted. You're basically going to get sexually assaulted. And then you're taking like such a deep dive plunge into this like seedy underworld that totally changes you. Like, you're never doing the chicken walk again. Like that's what I thought about. I was like, because like that's almost like a little boy thing, and it's like he's completely changed after this experience, because he just liked mysteries so much. But like the detective says, it's terrible.
So to that end, would you say this is in some sense like David Lynch's twisted take on a coming of age story?
Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like coming to terms with, because like I don't think a movie should necessitate like knowing about the director or anything like that, but this is the town like David Lynch basically grew up in, right? He grew up in the late 50s, early 60s in like a beautiful small town with like tree-lined streets and the milkman and the fireman waving on the truck and the Dalmatian and all that. He grew up in a Norman Rockwell painting, but obviously had darker artistic ambitions, and it's all about the being stuck between those two things, just like Eraserhead was.
That's actually a good point, because I remember, because I did a little research on the movie before the episode, and that scene where Dorothy, they drive up on the house and Dorothy is standing there naked. That's actually based on a real experience that David Lynch and his brother had as a child, and it traumatized. Like they were going down the street or something. I think they were in a car, and they just saw this like naked woman just walking down the sidewalk, and it traumatized him so much that he like cried, and he just never forgot about it. And so he put that scene was based off of that real experience. And so I guess that that does tie in really well with the main character's sort of loss of innocence as the movie goes on.
Mm-hmm.
That was also one of my, I guess, more standout scenes. I just thought it was so cool how they're having that crazy, like, heightened car chase, and he thinks it's that Frank guy, and it ends up being the ex-boyfriend that was almost like glossed over.
Yeah.
And then shit's about to go down, and then just even more, like, it just evolves into something else. Like,
dude, she just snuck out of the background. I wasn't paying attention at all, and I don't know how they did that with like misdirecting your eyes toward the foreground, right? Because like there's the confrontation gonna happen between the ex-boyfriend and Colin McLaughlin's character, and then all of a sudden she's just there. She like sneaks out of the bushes in the background, and like there she is. That scene, I agree, is like one of the top 2 or 3 scenes in the movie for me. And then especially like once they go into the house and they like call the police, and Laura Dern puts it all together, like what's been happening, and she realizes like what a psycho Jeffrey is. I mean, if that wasn't clear already from the only thing that's like really jarring to me about this movie is how Jeffrey goes from being like, I found an ear, to like, I have cracked this scheme to sneak into this woman's apartment that might be implicated in murder, and I'm like, it's very ballsy, very, very quickly.
That's part of the alienness and like lynchiness of the whole performance. Like that he's so strange from the start that I didn't find it that much of a jump from his.
Well, because even it brings it to like one thing. I probably should have brought this up before when we were talking about it. But even with the ear, like the fact that he just like picks it up covered in ants, like without any gloves on, and puts it in a shitty old bag, and like if I was him, I would have left it there and called the police and been like, hey, like he just like takes it straight up to the.
And the way he's like holding the bag, where he's like talking to the detective, it's like there's a sandwich in there or something.
Yeah, like it's one.
So another scene that I want to get to, and as part of this, I want to talk more about absolutely the best performance in the movie, Dennis Hopper as Frank Booth. Rarely do you get a character in a movie and a director that are so perfect together, and an actor that just combines into this towering performance, like one of the best villains in movie history. My favorite, the scene that I always think of when I'm thinking about Blue Velvet, is where they take Jeffrey and Isabella Rossellini in the car, and they go on the joyride, and then they wind up in this weird apartment, and there's all the, I don't know how to describe, but there's all the weird people there, and there's the guy he has like the caked white makeup, and then he lip syncs to a candy color clown, like the Sandman.
Yeah.
Like that whole scene blew me away. I don't know if you guys had, and it, like, clearly there's some, like, Frank Booth has some relation to that song, because he's like demanding that it be sung all the time and be played all the time. I don't know. So what are you guys' thoughts on Frank Booth and all the trouble they get up to?
Well, so for me, I mean, the most memorable line to me was just prior to where you were talking about Heineken. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, I knew it.
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yeah.
That's a strong Midwestern vibe. But so going into this movie, I had said I'd seen it, and that was a mistake. I conflated it in my mind with Mulholland Drive.
Mm.
And so now, having seen that, like knowing this was a David Lynch film, my favorite David Lynch content prior to this is the deleted scenes from Dune. Where like that movie is famously a mess. I still really like it for a lot of reasons, but it's like I'll acknowledge it's a mess. But the deleted scenes actually are. It's like the theatrical release. I think he's like famously like disavowed. Like he doesn't actually want to do anything with it because the production company or whatever cut so many of like the really Lynchian scenes out of it. So like there's a scene that Paul will have experience with. The Harkonnens have captured. I'm going to say a bunch of nerd shit here, but they've captured the Atreides Mentat Thufir Hawat, and they've given him a poison, which to counteract he must milk a cat every day to get the antidote. Which is a totally like Lynchian, like weird animal shit. And then like going into Eraserhead, that's super fucking weird. Mulholland Drive is super fucking weird. Twin Peaks gets to be super weird and has a one weird connection I made with Twin Peaks to this is that the town they live in is like I think it's called like Lumberton.
Yeah.
And like the radio is like sounds of trees being cut down. And then
and the jingle, the logging jingle.
At the sound of the falling log.
Yeah, that was very 50s
Yeah.
vibe.
But then in Twin Peaks there's a character called I think she's just called the Log Lady, and she just walks around and she has a small log in her arms like a baby at all times, and nobody ever comments on the log. So I don't know what David Lynch's connection to the logging industry is, but he clearly has something going on there. But through all those movies, like it's been a long time since I've seen Mulholland Drive. But I was totally confused while watching it. Dune is incomprehensible, even if you have read the book. I've only seen a bit of Twin Peaks, but like I know that gets like super convoluted and weird. And Eraserhead is just like super uncomfortable and weird. But this one, like, I knew what was going on. This is like the first David Lynch thing that I've seen where I understood what was happening 90% of the time. Like, later in the movie, Dennis Hopper's character has a disguise on, and I didn't recognize him until he started speaking. So that was like the only mystery to me. But otherwise, like I understood what was happening in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. This is definitely the most like I don't want to say like coherent because like that I feel like it would be a disservice to David Lynch to say his other movies are incoherent, but they're certainly more avant-garde.
It's the most accessible, probably.
Yes, this is his most accessible, and I think a perfect starting point because it kind of like sums up everything he's about as a director.
Okay, so can I ask you a question? Because I agree with this take. It was 95% relatively easy to follow. There's one scene that's a little ambiguous to me, and I'll pose it to the group. So we've talked about the car chase scene and where Dorothy emerges naked. And then we go back to the apartment. And this is, kind of the climax where we're going to catch the bad guys. And in the apartment, Jeffrey finds a murdered man who I take to be Don Valens and also the man in the yellow suit. How did they get there and who killed them?
Yeah, I was confused about that too.
So one reading I had was that Dorothy, in some fit of violence, killed them. But then I learned that's her husband, or supposed to be, and it doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I think it's just supposed to be Frank.
Figured, yeah.
Yeah,
I
was going to say
assumed
Frank.
it was Frank,
Well,
and he might have done it just like in a fit of rage as a response to meeting, what's his name, Jeremy.
And why did he kill his accomplice, the man in the yellow suit?
Well, I think it was because they
tying
were
up loose
getting onto
ends.
him because Jeffrey kept presenting evidence to the rest of the police department, and it was maybe setting up too much of it.
I see.
Yeah, because he's Laura Dern's father's partner. Like he shows up at the house earlier in the scene because like they're gonna go on patrol or something. So he's a corrupt cop, and I just assumed that Frank was like tying up loose ends. Like he's probably gonna go on the run once he's gotten rid of whatever witnesses.
Got it. Okay, well, somewhat less interesting than I thought, but maybe it brings me to my other closing, or one last thought I had on this film, which is like, we go through this, Jeffrey goes through this journey into the darkness, it changes him. but then he comes out the other side pretty much untouched. Like at the end,
Yeah.
there are no meaningful consequences for Jeffrey. So he gets the girl. He also like totally gets away with his affair. I mean, Sandy forgives him. Like
His dad gets healthy.
in that scene, his dad is healthy.
He
And
buys the house next to his parents.
Yeah.
right. So riddle me
Yes.
that. Like, is there any lesson here? Has Jeffrey learned anything at all, or maybe that's the point?
Well, I think.
And they look at the robin eating the bug too.
Yeah,
at the
well, because
end.
I think
That's
at
like
the
the
end
last
he
thing you see.
does manage to, even though he does it kind of messily in some ways, he does manage to do the right thing and solve the mystery and save the people he cares about. So I mean, yeah, I don't know. I guess yeah, I don't know. I suppose the point is just that he was able to wrap things up well, even if it wasn't initially in the most pleasant of ways. I don't know.
If I'm reading it as like somewhat autobiographical for David Lynch, I think like the lesson he's trying to present or the story he's trying to tell is that you can delve into the darkness as long as you can don't go too far where you can't come back out, because
as long as the robins can come out.
Yeah, as long as the robins are there and they're going to eat the bugs at the end of the day, and you get to come back and hang out with your new hot girlfriend, your hot blonde girlfriend, and
I don't know, because I feel like the because the whole scene opens on his ear, and then it zooms out, and his ear is clean and it's like brightly lit, in contrast to like in the beginning the deformed ear he finds with the ants all over it. So that I think that must represent some kind of like, I don't know, maybe it ties back to the church somehow and repentance and like cleansing.
Who can say? Like, I don't think it's important to know what
There's
Lynch
also
was
like
going for, right? It's just important to know like how it affected you and how it emotionally affected you as the viewer. That's my take.
No, like,
Yeah, it struck me as ultimately kind of an amoral view of humanity, but maybe a lighter or more generous reading is that we're supposed to accept the duality in Jeffrey, that he's capable of some evil, but really mostly good, and that's okay.
And ultimately that evil was conquered. Which, again, the Robin and the Beatles. So
sure.
Also, brutal. When he goes into that apartment at the only time I was like really freaked out in this movie was like when he goes into the apartment at the end and like the two dead bodies are like posed and they're like missing bits of their head. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, what was like? How is the guy in yellow like standing? That's what I didn't understand.
I think he's supposed to be like brain dead, but like he still has like motor function. If
he's still barely alive.
Weird. And then Frank finishes him when he comes in.
Okay. I did have some things I wanted to talk about with the ear, how you had mentioned. I kind of viewed it almost like a portal or like a tunnel. Because isn't there that earlier scene where it like zooms in and it has that the sound design and the soundscape is just really like nightmarish. And that was kind of the other thing I wanted to talk about. There's a lot of repeating scenes, repeating music, and very like emotional soundscapes. So like, the isolating stairwell that he constantly was going up and down, just like the ups and downs of the mystery that was going on. The weird like ear portal or whatever the hell was going on with that. What would Frank say? Like, it's dark again or something like that? And the song? And so I just thought that was really, really interesting. And even you guys had mentioned with the logging earlier, I noticed there was like two different shots when like it was like the logging truck was going by at that intersection. I forget what the building was in the middle, but it crisscrosses. So like one way it goes like northeast to southeast or southwest and vice versa. So I just thought it was interesting. Like I don't know what that means, but it was almost like an X marks the spot.
Yeah, I mean, we enter the darkness of the film through the tunnel of the severed ear and then kind of exit through David's clean ear.
Clean ear, yeah.
Yeah. What did you, I'm gonna ask it because we're all tiptoeing around. What was your guys' reaction to like the initial like really strong sexual scene at the beginning?
I wasn't really expecting it. It did kind of catch me off guard a little bit because I went in. I knew nothing about this movie when I went in to see it.
Yeah, I went in blind as well.
So it did catch me off guard. But I mean, it like is definitely entertaining. I would say in a movie sense, in the cinematic sense.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, because it reminds me a lot of Rear Window, which we talked about on the initial podcast, where you're just kind of the tension is high because there's nothing Jeffrey can do about it, and it's not like he's gonna look away or anything like that. And I just like I knew going into it that there was strong sexual content, and I figured like once he climbed in the closet and then like some other person entered, I was like, okay, here we go. Like this is where this is going to go down. And I was so relieved to find out that Dennis Hopper was huffing amyl nitrates. I thought he had like a fart in a jar or something like that.
I didn't know what the hell he was huffing.
I was so relieved to find out, like when I was reading about the movie and how it was like originally supposed to be helium, so his voice would go really high.
That would just kill the moment.
He just had like a thing of chemicals. Oh, dude, that would have been nuts. I think they made the right choice.
I feel like, but yeah, that's weird.
But I was so relieved to find out he didn't have like a bag full of shit or something like that. Like that would have just been like, oh my god.
That'd have been too much for 86.
What did you think of? What did you think of his friends?
Oh, one of them is Jack Nance, who is the main guy in Eraserhead. It's a little bit of.
I posed this question partially in jest because I guess for those who weren't here in the last episode, we spent a little bit of time going over our least favorite movie tropes, and one of mine was the idiot pack of goons.
Yes.
So actually, in that
literally,
regard, one of them I was like, I know I've seen this actor before. He's I think he's named Raymond. He's the guy with the switchblade.
Yeah.
I know I've seen him somewhere before. So I did a little bit of digging on IMDb. Found out that where I recognized him from was Star Trek Voyager, where he plays like a very minor role for like a 3-episode arc. And then, like, as I kept scrolling through his credits, I was like, oh, he was the Doctor in Deadwood. Oh, that's Grima Wormtongue from The Lord of the Rings. That's it.
Oh, you're right. That is Wormtongue.
Like,
wow.
Like he's got like a very particular like lower jawline. Like that's what I noticed about him. Like he's got like an underbite almost.
Yeah.
And again, just bring that back to Kyle MacLachlan. Like, what do you recognize about Kyle MacLachlan? Describe the man for me.
Right. Yeah, he's like the cinematic equivalent of like paper. Right?
Yeah, he's white bread.
He's very bland.
Let me. Do you mind? On the sexual violence note, question for the group, because I think about sometimes how these things might have hit an audience, a contemporary audience, and maybe how they hit me now today. And in a world where I've seen like The Human Centipede and Irreversible or The Lobster, like these are just some like films with some very graphic violence of various accounts. Like certainly it was an intense scene, but I don't think it hit the same. Like it, and I wonder if that touched my or colored my experience of the scene. And I would just say too, like I don't know if this is like something about 2010s plus like sexual culture, in a post 50 Shades of Grey world, but like also the idea of I don't know. There wasn't. I was surprised initially when I was reading a synopsis that I was supposed to read that as a rape scene, essentially.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But when it came out in '86, a lot of the contemporary criticism at that time was about, well, why is this movie so weird and funny and jokey and bonkers, and then it has these really intense scenes. It's almost a lot of critics felt that it was a disservice to Isabella Rossellini, that she had to do all sorts of humiliating things to be in this movie, and then there's this at the sound of the falling tree, and all the like the chicken walk and all these weird things. But I think that's kind of what makes the whole thing great and different and memorable. But I understand what you mean, though. It's hard to be. It's hard to be super sensitive to any kind of sexual content in a movie in a world where we've all grown up watching like live leak videos.
I know that it had an effect on Mulholland Drive, because Lynch got so much backlash for his alleged like abuse of the actress in this that for Mulholland Drive there's like a number of nude scenes featuring a woman, and like the actual release is censored, like her breasts are pixelated out because he didn't want that same like allegation against him. And I wonder if that was also like a because like he could have chosen to just not have the scene, so I wonder if that was kind of like a middle finger to the critics.
Yeah, this was like a 1-star from Roger Ebert, and I think like it definitely like I don't think it was received super well at the time. I think this was one where like the reputation grew.
Yeah, I think that is definitely true as well. I mean, this came out in the middle of the Reagan administration. This came out like
right
the same time period as Back to the Future and Gremlins and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I mean, I can't imagine being the kind of like this is maybe a discussion for another time, but sometimes what I think about is how lonely it must have been in the mid 80s pre-internet world to be somebody who was gonna be really Jones to go see this movie. Because like let's say you lived in Muscatine, Iowa in 1985, and then Blue Velvet comes to the local theater. Odds are you're probably the only person in your town that liked it out of the 10 people who saw it. And it's like, what are you supposed to do? Like, you can't get on the internet and find a chat room of other people to talk about. You can't have a podcast on Discord with your bros talking about this movie. Like, you're just supposed to go home and sit with this movie in your head for the next 15 years until the internet comes along. Like, I don't know. It just that it makes me feel very privileged to live in our very connected age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, do you guys anything else you guys want to talk about regarding Blue Velvet before we try to figure out what we're going to talk about next week?
I wanted to mention something about Dorothy's character. So like we had talked about with symbolism and everything, I thought her apartment, the way it looked, was a great reflection of like kind of how I saw her character. Like obviously she's a beautiful singer and she's in that club and everything, but there's just like this cloud of just like depression and just like downtroddenness because of her situation and the stuff with her son and everything going on with Frank and stuff like that. So I thought whoever did the set design for the apartment was great.
Well, and realize how different she looks at the very end of the movie, like when she has her son with her. Like she just almost takes on a completely different aura about her. I mean, that's a credit to the director as well as Isabella Rossellini.
I've got a quick one. Well, number one, just shout out to her performance of Blue Velvet.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Beautiful rendition.
I mean, great use of music throughout, right? Like after I watched this, I was singing Blue Velvet, of course, and then In Dreams for like days after seeing this movie.
Okay, here's my quick trivia question. Can anyone guess? Lumberton really threw me. I've never seen a town like that was like so woodland, but also had like some larger buildings. What state do you think this was filmed in?
Virginia.
I was going to guess, Washington or Oregon.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, I thought it was more. I thought it was north. Yeah, I went PNW, but it's Wilmington, North Carolina.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. Cool. Should we talk about our familiarity with David Lynch? I think I mentioned it earlier, but yeah, like for me, this is my first movie of his, but he's a director I've probably seen more of. Like I've seen more videos of him and him just talking or people talking about him than any other director, but I hadn't seen his work until this one.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. He's a very iconoclastic. He's just like an interesting dude to listen to. And he's got that weird YouTube channel where he gives the weather report every day, and he's been doing it for like the last 3 years consistently.
Crazy.
Yeah, he's kind of a psycho, but that's kind of like what we all love about him.
I think the last small thing I did want to say too, I just really loved some of the sound design, like with the ear thing, with when Jeffrey was having that almost like a PTSD like flashback when he was abusive to Dorothy, and like the yelling, like I felt like all the sounds just perfectly captured like the intensity of the sexual assault and the different things that happen.
If you like the sound in this movie, check out Eraserhead, because that also has an amazing soundtrack. I don't mean in terms of like songs, but just in terms of sound design. Eraserhead
like
has
texture.
a lot of really
I think I love it.
It's like if 9 Inch Nails was a movie, that's Eraserhead.
That's fucking awesome.
Isn't he like? I feel like I saw something where he's like going to be an actor in an upcoming movie.
Who? Trent Reznor?
No,
Or David Lynch. Oh, he shows up every once in a while as like he showed us up as himself in the show Louis, the Louis C.K. show, and there was another movie recently where he played John Ford, the Western director.
Oh no, it was a movie called The Fabelmans.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
So, unless anybody wants to talk about Blue Velvet more, do you guys want to try to figure out what we want to talk about next week? Somebody mentioned earlier Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. I'd be willing to, I think it'd be fun to go from like a Criterion art house movie like Blue Velvet and, do a little 90-minute Scooby-Doo romp, or what are you guys feeling?
If somebody can find a place for us all to watch it, I'll do that. But I don't know if you can just
on
watch
streaming
that.
or anything.
I doubt it. If
Oh,
somebody
I
can
bet we
find
can find
a perfectly legal
Yes.
link where we can all view the movie, then I'll watch it.
If you
Yeah.
have, looks
Not
like
on
you got Amazon Prime.
Is
I
it?
could also pull up the list of favorites and then throw it into the randomizer bucket.
Let's see. We could do that just to see what comes out, but we
Yeah,
could
let's-
still pick.
I'm worried that you'll get one of my movies in the
Don't feel so worried about that, Paul. Your movies sounded good. I hadn't seen any of them, but they did sound good.
Yeah, I was
A lot
wondering
of
where you
mine
guys
are.
found them.
I will tell you, a lot of mine were not good. I just chose them because they're fun and pretentious. We should have Jacob and Alex create a list of 5 movies to throw into the bucket as well.
Oh yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you guys seen John Carpenter's The Thing?
Oh hell, you bet
Yes.
your ass I've seen.
Only once,
That's my
but
favorite
yes.
horror movie ever.
I have not.
So I definitely think it'd be cool to have one on that.
Wait, Alex, did you say you haven't seen it?
I have not seen it. No.
Okay, gotcha.
My one reservation about talking about The Thing is just like the literal circle jerk.
Oh, but it's so good, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
It is pretty badass.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, but Kurt Russell wears that cowboy hat.
He wears the hat.
Whatever, dude. At least we're not talking about fucking
No.
Star Wars on this show.
Oh, man.
I'm fine to have another excuse to watch The Thing.
Yeah.
Here's what we do. We watch The Thing, and then we can compare it to the remake.
the prequel remake.
Oh yeah, I forgot there is
The
a
prequel,
remake. Yeah.
The prequel's like it's okay, like it's serviceable, but it's not like anything to write home about, in my opinion.
Has everybody seen the original Wicker Man?
I've seen bits
Yes.
of it.
I've never actually watched it.
It's pretty good.
I have not either.
I'm talking about obviously not the Nick Cage.
Not the Nick Cage one.
It's like 1960 something, 63 maybe.
I'll throw that out as I don't know. I'd throw that in the mix.
Well, how about we do this then? So Jake,
We all like nominate one.
Jake and Alex, if you guys want to submit your maybe next week we start off like I did The Lost World this week. Next week we'll start off with your top 5, and we'll talk through those. We'll throw them into the giant compilation of top 5s that I have here, and then we'll hit the randomize button and we'll see what pops out of it. But you're right. I wouldn't feel right about hitting the randomize button without your guys' top 5 in there. It also has my brother's top 5 in here, so there's a 1 out of 25 chance that we're all going to have to end up watching
The
Rookie
Yeti
of
gave
the
up story.
Rookie of the Year, my brother's favorite movie.
Sounds good, Sam.
So
I don't know.
for this next week, what do you guys want to do? You want to do the Thing double feature?
So I have not seen Wicker Man. I could watch The Thing, and I know everybody loves that movie, so definitely easy to riff off of. But if the idea, I don't know, I'm interested in the idea of like watching a movie that I haven't seen before. I don't know what you guys think. I also might be the only one that hasn't seen Wicker Man.
I agree. I'm down to do something fresh.
Yeah, I also like that idea. Although I would totally be willing to watch 1917 again, if that means I get to hear Neill's initial reaction to it, because Neill would jizz his pants over this movie.
That was a good movie.
It's so
What if
good.
what if we did this? I haven't seen The Thing, so I could go take it as homework to watch and do like 5 minutes on it,
and I'll watch Wicker Man.
however it goes, and then maybe we could.
Yeah, we could all have like our own assignment.
Alone.
Okay. I hate horror movies, so
it's not that much of a horror movie.
Alex, I'll come over and watch The Thing with you.
All right, sounds good. But
okay,
then
what am I supposed to watch then?
The...
Am I supposed to watch The Wicker Man or something then?
Maybe everybody watches 1917 or something.
I just recently rewatched that.
I haven't seen it since it was in theaters, but I can watch it again.
Yeah, why don't we do 1917 for, as like the big one next week, and then we'll check in on Alex Princeton and his review of the Thing.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Sounds awesome.
All right, guys. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I will see everybody here next week, and we'll talk about the Thing, and we'll talk about 1917.
Take it easy.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Join us next week, and we'll be talking about the 1937 French film Le Grand Illusion.